Welcome to Connect Safely Live, our twice weekly talk show, if I can call it that, which is broadcast on both Zoom and Facebook Live. With me, as is often the case, is Connect Safely's Director of K-12 Education, Carrie Gallagher. And we have a special guest. We're very excited to introduce Antigone Davis, who is Facebook's Head of Global Safety. We work with her very closely and have gotten to know her very well over the last few years. And she is the person who can answer just about any question around how Facebook is handling certainly safety and working with kids and families, but also privacy. And of course, during this period of COVID, some of the broader issues that are coming up as people are spending more and more time online. So welcome, Antigone.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for having me. And actually, even more importantly, thank you actually for putting these together. I think with more and more families online, more and more people online generally, having places where they can go to get information about what's going on safety-wise, privacy-wise, information-wise is really important.
And just a reminder,
I think we're also really excited to learn from you about what Facebook is doing in particular, because Facebook has been doing a lot and people may not be aware of it. So we're excited to talk about that today.
And as a reminder, if you want to share this with somebody who isn't able to watch it live, it will be archived on Connect Safely's Facebook page. That's facebook.com/ConnectSafely. And it will also be on Connect Safely's YouTube channel. So this will be around for a while. Antigone, I want to start with the obvious question about what Facebook is doing right now in response to the COVID-19 crisis. We know it's having a big impact on your service, in many in positive ways, probably some challenging ways. Talk a little bit about your response.
Well, let me talk to you very specifically about COVID-19 information. So one of our top priorities right now is to make sure that people have access to accurate information and resources. So we've launched a COVID-19 information hub. You'll find it at the top of your news feed. What you'll find there are tips that have been developed by experts, as well as the ability to access information directly from those expert resources. And the idea here was really to make sure that people could get to accurate information quickly. We've also taken some steps to provide additional support to those organizations themselves so that they also are able to get people the information that they need. So we gave $10 million to WHO and CDC and are encouraging fundraisers there. And I think just to give you a sense of the scope of that, we have directed 1 billion people to these resources.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And I think those are really important sort of large projects that are meant to make an impact truly on people's health and ability to stay connected. At the same time, a lot of us are feeling like our world has gotten smaller, right? So, kids are spending a lot of time with their parents, and as schools have transitioned to remote learning, some faster than others, they're spending a lot of time online and in front of screens. And they always did for fun and at school, but not in the same ways with their families all the time. So how can parents really be mindful about online safety and digital literacy, as now there's really no choice to kind of step away? Our children need to be engaged.
Well, one of the things that we did actually, as we saw more and more families online, more and more families at home for very good health reasons, obviously, we launched something called Get Digital. So this is a program that is designed to provide people with easy lessons and games, etc., to really identify what are the safety things to be thinking about, your privacy considerations, how to be good digital citizens, all kinds of really good learning tools for online. We sort of moved the launch of that up early so that people could access it. It's specifically designed for parents, families, as well as educators. So that was one of the things we wanted to get out very quickly. But for any parent who is looking for just general tips, we also have a safety center and parents portal that they can go to that has some just good reminders about the precautions to put in place during, whenever you're online, really, quite honestly.
Yeah, I really wanted to put in a plug for the Get Digital program. People can find it at facebook.com/FBGetDigital. And what's great about it is there are activities that you can do away from a screen. So you may access it by going online, right? But these are discussion starters and activities that are specifically designed for parents and kids to do at home, but also there's activities that teachers can sort of convey to families to do to really help with that digital wellness thing. It isn't just about safety. Sometimes it's also about like our emotional and mental well-being, right?
Mhm.
And I think Facebook did a nice job putting that out.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Carrie. And by the way, I want to apologize if we speak over each other, but it is actually happening on live broadcast networks as well. I saw that on CNN the other day. There's always going to be a latency when you're talking over a Zoom or any form of online conferencing system. Antigone, there's this term social distancing, which I actually think is the wrong word. I think it should be physical distancing because in fact, even though my wife and I know everybody, you and Carrie and our families are practicing physical distancing, we're staying at least 6 feet from anybody who isn't a member of our household. We are not necessarily social distancing. In fact, I feel more socially connected now than I do during normal times. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how that plays out in social media in terms of staying socially connected while we're physically distancing ourselves.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring this up. We are seeing, and I certainly in my own personal life, but we are seeing this, across our platforms, people really using our technologies to support staying socially connected. So whether, as Carrie mentioned, that's through classroom interactions, or whether last night was Passover for people who are Jewish, and they're using this for virtual seders. People are finding ways to creatively use these technologies. We're seeing tremendous art performances, Yo-Yo Ma performing concerts, really trying to figure out how to create deep social connections using these technologies, which is I think actually a great. I will, just like a small example from my own personal life. A host of my college friends, we are now doing a weekly call. Now, this is a call we probably could have been doing at any point in time, but something about this moment reminded us how important we are to each other. And we have now set up this call, and we're getting an opportunity to really hear how each one of us are doing. Same thing I have with my colleagues at work. We are now doing a virtual coffee hour once a week, where we have an opportunity to talk to each other. No work, just talk to each other. We're getting to know each other in deeper ways than we might otherwise have had. So there are real opportunities. We're also seeing, probably in a much less personal way, but really important, very important way, people are using these technologies to provide help to each other. Yeah. So for example, we've seen people who have set up exchanges where they're going and finding older people in their community who may not be able to walk their dogs themselves or leave their homes, offering to take their dogs for a walk or to drop a bag of groceries outside at their door. This kind of back and forth, and having these technologies facilitate that is great. Something we see a lot, but something that really we're seeing even more of right now.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I have 2 adult children, and each of them has a partner. And we would all get together once, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, because they live a little bit far away. Every week, we're doing a games night together. So all 6 of us, my son and his girlfriend, and my daughter and her husband, and my wife and myself, play games. We're using something called Jackbox TV. And it's a little bit complicated, but it works. And we're also having long conversations. And I literally am closer to my kids now than I have been probably since they left the house, when they were little. So it's really great. And you mentioned the seders. We've attended 2 so far and have 1 tonight. And sure, they're nowhere near as intimate as being there in person, but given the circumstances, we're getting a lot out of them. And by the way, Easter is coming up, and Carrie, I wouldn't be surprised if your family is figuring out a way. Have you figured out a way to do a virtual Easter egg hunt yet?
Oh, you know what? That's a really great idea. I know that my sister is doing an egg hunt with her 2-year-old twins, and we may end up doing one with my own kids who are a little bit older, but it would be great for them to be doing it sort of virtually at the same time.
Maybe there's an app for that.
I think you could probably do it through putting on my teacher's hat. I bet you could do it through a scavenger hunt. So scavenger hunt type egg hunt that you could do and kind of all convene at the end. but this is the kind of, look, are people going to, looking forward to when they can actually be physically present in the same room and connect, to be able to give a hug? Absolutely. This is not going to replace that, but I do think this is giving people an opportunity to really use platforms like Facebook or Instagram or others to find ways to make those connections that they were making online deeper.
You know, if I could just do a
Yeah,
follow-up before I turn over to Carrie for the next question, is that brings up a broader question of the fact that with any luck, we're going to get through this, and I know we will, so hopefully sooner rather than later. And I'm wondering, and this could, either one of you could address this, is what are we learning that we can take with us when this is over, that we can maybe improve our lives going forward?
Well, I think, I mean, look, one of the things I think is clear is actually looking at how we engage. So we've spent a lot of time, a conversation that people are thinking about all the time. And I know, Carrie, you've mentioned this as your work as a teacher, parents' concern around screen time. And what I think parents are seeing now is that perhaps screen time is real. When we talk about that, that's really a proxy for the type of way that you're using your screens. And so right now we have to use our screens to connect. And no one's saying you need to count the hours for this at this moment in time. What we're really trying to do is identify how we use that screen time in a way that's really productive, that helps to create social connections, that helps with learning, etc. So I think this is a shift that we'll see, is a probably a deeper, more sophisticated look at how we use our screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that is a nice kind of segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about. Like we're using screens to see the faces of the people whose faces we miss, right? And I think for my children, that's their teachers and their friends. And for Larry, for you, it's your children and their partners. I think on the other hand, there are certain people's faces who we're seeing a lot of, right? Like my two children and my husband and my dog and I, we are together a lot, right? And there sometimes is a need for us to take a break, and that can be hard. So I'm wondering, Antigone, if you could talk about how people can give each other permission to take a break and, maybe use their technology in their home creatively in a way that doesn't make them feel guilty about the screen time, but is really allowing them to reflect and have a sense of personal wellness too.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. I'm glad that you're asking that question. We have been talking quite a bit to folks that we work with, on experts that we work with around mental health and well-being. And it can be very hard for some people. They don't even necessarily have their families with them. They maybe feel quite isolated. They may be alone. And how do you manage that? So we will be offering some resources in the coming days for folks within that same information hub. These will be tips from experts on how to maintain their well-being, as well as the ability to access resources outside of Facebook. I know just from my own interactions with some of these experts and sort of some of the techniques that I am using. For example, one of the things that I have done is really to try to set up time to come to my work and then do my work when I need to be online, and then to walk away and make my time with my family separate and apart from that. And one of the little techniques that someone had suggested to me that I think can be quite useful is, if you are still able to walk outside your home, if you're not completely inside your home, just walk around the block. Create a sort of pseudo commute or a fake commute for yourself before you start your work and at the end of your day, so that you're really making those same kinds of social transitions that help you come to your family as a family member, and not sort of in walking in both worlds at the same time. Another thing is, I don't know about other people, but I know for myself, I try to limit the amount or the time that I look at information and news, in particular around COVID-19. It can create some anxiety, and it's very easy to get kind of very wrapped up in it. So I try to put 2 times during the day where I kind of check in on any of the latest developments or news that I might need to know, and that works for me. But that's, I think, another important tip for folks.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And by the way, speaking of sort of the mental health issues, as of course ConnectSafely serves on the Facebook Safety Advisory Board, And one of the joys of that, aside from getting to work with you and your colleagues, is getting to work with other board members. One of them is the National Network to End Domestic Violence, which is a great organization. And I know that they've got their hands full right now because a lot of people are stuck at home with people who may be abusive. I happen to have a lovely spouse, and I think she's pretty happy with me, but not everybody is so fortunate. So there are people, especially women, who may be in really difficult situations right now where they're kind of stuck with an abusive partner. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we actually just did a similar type of broadcast with the National Network to End Domestic Violence around this very issue. So if you one of the things that people need to keep in mind is that oftentimes in an abusive relationship, one of the ways that someone may control another person is actually by restricting their privacy and their movement. And so being isolated in a singular place with someone who may be abusive can be incredibly problematic for some people. And so working with the National Network to End Domestic Violence, we really wanted to get their tips, help them get their tips out to people. So they've put together a great resource that really for folks like who may be friends with someone or a family member of someone who may be in an abusive relationship, how can you help this person and support this person during this time period? Helping them to set up a safe communication channel, helping them to have a way to reach out if they are perhaps in an emergency situation. And I really strongly recommend that people go to the National Network to End Domestic Violence website and take a look and find those tips there.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's such an important topic. You know, many of us are doing pretty well, but there are people who, for a variety of reasons, are not doing well. And of course, my heart goes out to all the people who are unemployed right now, not to mention the homeless, unhoused people who are having an even tougher time than many of us are. You know, Facebook.
I think if I could
Yeah, go
just
ahead,
say
please.
one thing, Larry, I also want to mention that I think it's a great opportunity for us to be grateful for what we have, right? Like those of us who are not alone, because there are a lot of people who I even work with, teachers I work with who are not married and don't have families, and they've been alone now for several weeks solid. And so those of us who aren't alone, who are still employed, we have a lot to be grateful for, but it is important to allow yourself to experience your stress and just say, well, I should, you know, and not just tell yourself, oh, I'm not allowed to be stressed because I'm also very fortunate. Like, it's okay to give yourself permission to kind of feel that stress, and but also use that to kind of reach out and offer support in a way that you can, whether it's virtual or making a donation, because if you can, it can make a big difference, and it can help alleviate your stress too. So
that's a really good point. Thanks, Carrie. You know, Facebook has struggled with disinformation campaigns for a while now, most famously over the 2016 election. And I know you're struggling and working very hard to curb that with the 2020 election. But now we have COVID-19, and I don't understand quite why. I have my theories, but there are people who are spreading fake information, false rumors, which are not only annoying, but in this case, very dangerous, because they could literally lead to, they're matters of life and death. And so talk to us a little bit about how you're handling these disinformation efforts that I'm sure some of people are using your platform and others to disseminate.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, one of our top priorities is getting people accurate and information and access to resources. And this is why we've put this information hub at the top of newsfeed. And by the way, for people who may go to search about coronavirus on Facebook, or to tap on a hashtag on Instagram that's COVID-19 related, though, if you do either one of those, we will actually direct you toward the WHO and and your local health authority to get you the most accurate information as well. In addition, we are removing this kind of misinformation, and we are working with our experts to identify those hoaxes and to pull that information down to ensure that people get to the right information, to get to that accurate information that is so actually very, very important at this point in time. The other thing that we're doing is we've seen some people who are using ads to try to sell cures, supposed cures for this type of for this virus, or to sell masks for, to help prevent the virus, we are not allowing those ads as well. All, again, to really make sure that people are getting to the accurate needed information at this point in time.
And if I can make a plea to people, if you see something on Facebook or any other social media that in any way, shape, or form looks like maybe it's not true, like you don't recognize the source, or it's making a claim, for example, offering a product that is otherwise hard to get, do some research before you share it. Don't share false information. It's better to leave it alone if you're in doubt, but if you can, it's sometimes as simple as, if you're on a computer, highlighting it, right-clicking, do a Google search, see if there's been anything on Snopes or other fact-checking organizations. But whatever it is, unless you're sure of the source, don't share it, because the last thing you want to do is spread false information to people who look to you for your advice and wisdom.
No, thank you. And in fact, we've been supporting those fact checkers as well. But that's, I think, it's really, it's great advice. I really appreciate you passing that along.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I think that those actions that Facebook has taken, I've certainly heard about them in the news, and I'm so grateful for them, because I just know, like Larry talked about, he and I have worked together on media literacy education quite a bit, and really coaching people on how to respond when they see false information. If we can empower ourselves not just to scroll past it, but to actually respond with the accurate information, so that you're really making the internet a better place, right? Speaking of making the internet a better place, have you seen an uptick in compassion in how people are using Facebook? Or are people kind of exhibiting their stress with an uptick in cyberbullying? Which way are we going as users?
So look, I don't know if I have a measurement on either one, but I have really seen people using our platform in tremendous ways to support each other. I mentioned a few of them a little bit earlier, but we've seen people, you've probably seen some of these too, but we've seen people who are doing performances that people can come and listen to as a way of feeling connected. We've seen people who are using our platform to set up delivery of food for people who may be not able to get out of the house to get food, and doing it in a way that's actually safe and falls within the guidelines of our physical distancing rules in order to flatten the curve. We see people who are doing, providing lessons online. So I've seen some lessons where I've actually wanted to reach out, but lessons on how, whether it's music lessons or other academic lessons during this time period for people to access. So there are all kinds of ways in which we see people really trying to offer support. One of the things that I think I'd really encourage people to do is to think about what are the things that actually really matter to them, and how can they use our platform or other online platforms to do something that provides meaning to them. So in talking to our well-being experts, one of the things that comes up quite a bit is that actually doing something that gives you a sense of meaning in a time when you're having a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety and may not feel like you have total control over your environment can really help you cope. And by the way, you're also really doing something good for other people as well. So find people I've seen people who are, I'm sure we've all seen people who are sewing masks and delivering them to their healthcare workers. These are the kinds of things that really do help people make it through a period of isolation like this. So I would encourage people to do as much of that as they can. Find, if you have an organization that's providing services, use Facebook's donation tool or another online donation tool to raise some funding for those organizations.
My son is a professional musician, and of course his tours have been canceled and the weddings that he performed at have been postponed. But he's been doing both a Thursday night Zoom dance party where actually everybody gets to kind of see, maybe 200 or 300 people will kind of dance together, and maybe 4 or 5 musicians will perform. And then every Sunday at noon on Balkan Bump, which is his page, he does a party or an event on Facebook, and he gets thousands of people. I think we got 8,000 or 10,000 people last week who watch him perform. And it gives joy to his fans and his audience, but it also gives him a sense of purpose. Now, I don't have that talent, but we're doing things like this. And every once in a while, my wife and I, just for fun, will do a Facebook Live, maybe in the kitchen, just to kind of goof off. And, you know, you wouldn't think this is the most unprofessional video you've ever seen in your life, but a lot of our friends really like it. And we love it because it gives us a sense of together as a couple, we get to do something fun and share it with people.
Well, I think that actually brings up, you know, one of the nice things that I'm seeing, which is really watching people bring their authentic selves to social platforms. That is something that, you know, Facebook has always been very keen to support people really coming as their authentic selves. And we have, you know, your profile says who your name is, etc. And this is really this opportunity for people to bring true authenticity to their interactions. And it's great to see. And it's quite humanizing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be professional. It just fun is great. We're gonna
we have
wrap
a question. We have a question from the audience, Larry, that I wanted to make sure that we were able to share with Antigone. So this viewer is asking about, or is concerned about, some of the stigma that comes from being someone who's been diagnosed with COVID-19, and then potential being ostracized by others because of that diagnosis, while also trying to manage your own recovery and health and wellness. Do you think that Facebook can do anything to help send kind of positive, I mean, in addition to the accurate information, which we really appreciate that Facebook is taking action here, but positive messages to address misconceptions and make sure that people who do experience this illness are able to kind of heal, but also maintain their relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting on two different things there. One is sort of stigmatization, and then the other is potentially bullying. And, you know, when it comes to bullying, first of all, we don't allow that on our platform. And if people report that to us, we are going to take it down. And that would be the case if someone's bullying around someone's diagnosis of any kind of medical illness. The other thing is that there are some really good experts who have been working on the bullying front. So there is a cyberbullying research center, an expert by the name of Samir Hinduja and his colleague Justin Patchen, who have some great resources that encourage people to go there. I also think one of the things that really helps in this situation is people who come forward and sort of you know, acknowledge that they've been diagnosed. So we've seen some people, certainly celebrities, who are coming forward to kind of take away any stigma that may be attached to this. This is something I hope that we'll see not only with regard to COVID-19, but with other physical and mental health issues and challenges that people face. Trying to break down that stigma and make that human connection, I think can really help.
You know, it's interesting. CNN's Chris Cuomo, who happens to be the brother of the governor of New York, has been diagnosed, and he's broadcasting from home. And I'm not usually a fan of his. I mean, he's okay, but I don't watch him every night. But I have been watching him the last few nights because it's given me some hope. Fortunately, my family has not been directly affected, but I know people who have. And to see somebody who's going through it, and he's very honest about it, both the negatives, the awful experiencing, but also the positivity, and how he's exercising and doing what he can to try to control the illness. It's inspiring, and I wish him and everyone else a speedy recovery. We're going to go pretty soon, but I want to talk a little bit about video conferencing, because that's become the way in which many of us communicate. And I know Facebook has that on some of their platforms, the ability, certainly on WhatsApp and Instagram, the ability to have these chats. And of course, there's Zoom and Google Hangouts and Skype and other tools out there. As somebody who's worked so much in the area of internet safety, do you have any advice for people who are just now getting to experience video conferencing?
Well, it's probably the same advice I would give for most online tools, which is really learn what the privacy settings are, what the security settings are, and make use of them. Understand who, if you're having a video conference and you're inviting people in, be aware of who is you've invited into the conference. If you give people a link for people to get into that particular video conference and you think it may get disseminated broadly, put a password so that you can actually ensure that the people who are coming into the video conference are the people that you intended in that video conference. But these are the kinds of things people should be thinking about, take that time to do that.
You're absolutely right. And by the way, on ConnectSafely.org, there's a guide to Zoom's tools, safety tools. They've done a lot in response to some problems they had early on, and we're working to develop guides to other tools as well. We do have an audience question. Someone asked me, said she was wondering if you will do in-house research on your platforms during this time to provide more insight into the patterns of behavior for the broader research community.
So there are some efforts going on right now with mapping for understanding the path of the trajectory of the disease, and we are working with some data scientists basically through our Data for Good projects. We are already doing so. Yes.
Great. We're going to wrap up shortly. Carrie, do you have any follow-up or last-minute questions or comments?
No, I just wanted to just share a personal story, Antigone, so that if you do other interviews like this, you can share it. My children are 11 and 8, and they both have Facebook Messenger kids, and it has really provided them with the freedom to initiate their own video conversations with their friends without having to go through me. And it's because I trust the platform, because I know it's specifically designed for them, and because I know exactly who they're friends with, because our parents have sort of, you know, flip the switch and given them permission. They just really appreciate having that independence to connect with their friends, just like they would if they were going to school with them. So I just wanted to share that that's been something that's really meaningful. And I'm kind of grateful that that's a product that Facebook has put out there for families as an option.
I'm really glad that I'm glad that you mentioned it. I feel like you should have my job. Messenger Kids is a great messaging app. It's parent controlled. It also provides parents with a tremendous amount of visibility. And I'd encourage, I'd encourage parents to take a look at it, particularly if their children are online a lot more. It does allow for you to have the kind of control and visibility. We worked very closely with the teams that were developing that. We brought in experts, not only parents, but educators, people who are experts in child development and safety in building that app to ensure that we built the right precautions in it that families were looking for.
Thanks so much
Plus,
for bringing
it's
it up.
fun.
Very good.
Yeah.
I agree.
It is so fun. Totally fun.
It is.
Great
I'm playing with it
games.
with my niece. We're really having a great time.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you raised that. We've been working on it with you guys since the beginning on that, and are big fans of Messenger Kids. So I'm glad it's working well for your family, Carrie. Well, I think it's about time to wrap up. Any last thoughts, Antigone, before we let you go?
No, honestly, I guess the only thing I would say is, first of all, thank you. Again, I think these are really important for people and very useful. Also, thank you for being ahead of the curve and getting guides out for whether it's Zoom, Instagram, Facebook, so that people have access to the information that they need. And the only other thing really that I would like for sort of you or anybody to be thinking about is, how do we really take this time to find a way to create meaning for ourselves and use these platforms to do that. It will. I'm seeing great things on our platform, and whether it's these fundraisers or connections, new connections from old friends, and hopefully we can really hold on to that and find sort of the silver lining to physical distancing.
Thank you again, Antigone Davis from Facebook, Head of Global Safety, and of course, my colleague, Carrie Gallagher from both Connect Safely and St. John's Prep in Danvers, Mass. And we'll be back again on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for another hopefully exciting adventure in the new program. We've never done a twice weekly television show before, but that's what we're doing. We all make changes during this time. But thanks again, and Antigone, love to have you back again at some point soon.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Antigone. Thanks, Larry.
Bye-bye.